Likkutei Sichos Chelek Aleph, Pekuday Gimel. Al pasuk on the pasuk, Vahi b'chodesh Harishon b'shana hashenis b'chol chodesh hukam hamishkan. It was on the first month, the second year, b'chol chodesh, on the first day of the month, hukam hamishkan. The Mishkan was erected. This is the first day of Nisan, when the Mishkan is finally erected, after the Yidden spend all the time building it and then bringing it to Moshe Rabbeinu. And then for 7 days, as we'll learn, it's a Shivas Mei Meluyim, the 7 days of Meluyim, Zayin Mei Meluyim, when Moshe Rabbeinu is erecting the Mishkan and disassembling it, during which time Aaron and the Kohanim are being inducted into the Kahuna. And then finally, on the 8th day, Hukam HaMishkan, the Mishkan is erected and settled permanently in this fashion. And on that day, as described much more elaborately in Parsha Shmini, the presence of Hashem resides, and there's a whole elaborate system of karbanos as described in Parsha Shmini. So Isa b'Medrash, the Medrash says, this is a Medrash in Tanchuma, of Hova b'Pirish Rashi, and it's quoted in Rashi. The Masha Nemar. It's quoted in Rashi a bit earlier than the pasuk quoted earlier. It's quoted in Rashi when the Yidden bring it to Moshe. When the Yidden bring the Mishkan, all the Kalim to Moshe Rabbeinu, that's when Rashi quotes this Medrash. The Medrash says, the Masha Nemar Hukam HaMishkan, the fact that the pasuk says, and the Mishkan was erected, and not that he erected it. Mashma, from this implication is Mishkan Hukam Elav, that the Mishkan was erected out of itself. So explains the Medrash, quoted in Rashi, because the Yidden could not do it. Puts in parentheses there, it says Machmas Kovet crushing, because of the how heavy the crushing the boards were. This is a line that Rebbe points in the footnote that this is a line that Rashi adds, and the Rebbe explains this elsewhere. And Moshe himself couldn't erect it; it was too big, too heavy. So God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, "Asek biyadcha, invest your hand in it. It will appear as if you are erecting it, and it will erect on its own. I will write it about you, that you erected it." The pasuk reads, on the one hand, the pasuk here says, the pasuk we quoted at the beginning, the pasuk in our Parsha Pekuday, where it says that the Mishkan was erected. But who actually did that erecting that happened automatically? Moshe Rabbeinu. As the pasuk says, Moshe Mishkan, the pasuk says, in the very next pasuk, right after Hukam HaMishkan, it says, and Moshe Rabbeinu erected Moshe erected the Mishkan. So on the one hand, the pasuk says Moshe did it. On the other hand, it says that it was done on its own. Explains the Medrash. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you will put your hand there to begin the process. It'll erect on its own, b'derech nes, miraculously, and Hashem will have considered it and write it in the verse as if you did it, and that's why it says Vayakam Moshe. Okay. Let me say like this now. But we have to understand. Lahalam b'Medrash Isa, the very Medrash itself, the Medrash Tanchum itself says, V'cheinu b'Pirish Rashi, and Rashi says the same thing. That throughout the 7 days of induction leading up to the Reish Chodesh Nisan, when this pasuk is described, where the Mishkan erected on its own, Moshe. Which of course, if it was 7 days, then 7 days before Aleph Nisan is Chav Gimel Adar. Moshe Rabbeinu would erect the Mishkan and disassemble it. We just finished saying that the Medrash Tanchuma says and Rashi says that nobody was able to erect it, because of how heavy the Krashim were, as Rashi puts it. So how is it possible that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to erect it and disassemble it every single day for 7 days if no one could do it? It's a very pashta shaila. So the question is very clear in Rashi's view, because it's clear from Rashi that the day in which Hukam HaMishkan, the Mishkan was erected of its own, is on Aleph Nisan, And it's clear also from Rashi that for 7 days before Aleph Nisan, Moshe Rabbeinu erected it and disassembled it. And therefore, the Rebbe's question of how is it possible that Moshe Rabbeinu can, why is there no mention of how he erected it and disassembled it on those 7 days when seemingly it's too difficult? And all of a sudden on the 8th day, we're trying to wonder, how did it happen? Oh, it happened miraculously. If you're saying it happened miraculously on the 8th day, then what was he doing the last 7 days? But when it comes to the Medrash, it's a little more sticky to justify the Rebbe's question, and that's where the footnote comes in. So first of all, in footnote 6, the Rebbe quotes the Midrashim where this idea that for 7 days Moshe Rabbeinu was erecting and disassembling, and then puts in the footnote in the parentheses that the Medrash Rabbah, who has a similar comment, says that Moshe Rabbeinu erected it and disassembled it once, twice, or 3 times every day, depending on different opinions, which would make the question even stronger. If Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't do it on the 8th day, and the Rebbe is asking how could he have done it, and he had to have the miracle of Hashem doing it automatically, so how could he have done it the 7 days before, and nishtam 7 days, but according to some opinions, twice, 3 times. So how is that possible? Then there's other sources there, and then if you look at footnote number 8, where the Rebbe wrote that the first day of the 7 days of Miluyim is the 23rd of Adar, Chav Gimel Adar, which is 7 days before Reish Chodesh Nisan. So where did we get this idea? Where's the source for this idea that Chav Gimel Adar is the first day of the Miluyim, of this induction period leading up to Reish Chodesh Nisan? So as explained in the book Seder Olam, Sefri b'Middrash Teres Kohanim Shabara 6. So in Hara 6, where the Rebbe quoted the sources for the idea that for 7 days Moshe Rabbeinu was erecting it and assembling it. Amongst those sources were the Seder Olam, the Sefri b'Middrash Teres Kohanim, where there it also says that the date of the beginning of the 7 Miluyim is Chav Gimel Adar. Where there too it says that the Reish Chodesh Nisan was the day of Hukam HaMishkan, when the Mishkan was erected on its own, and the 7 days before starting Chav Gimel Adar. Now, what's missing here is the Tanchuma. The Tanchuma is the source for this idea that the Mishkan was erected on its own. Now, when we say that the Mishkan that the 7 days of Miluyim began on Chav Gimel Adar, the sources do not include the Tanchuma, which would mean, maybe, says the Rebbe accordingly, therefore, you might have suggested, but it's wrongly suggested, that the Tanchuma there, which says that the Mishkan was erected on its own, that the 7 days began on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So if the 7 days began on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and therefore when it says in the pasuk it wasn't the 8th day. What 8th day? So according to what we've been saying till now, the 8th day means the 8th day from the beginning of Miluyim, but the 8th day is actually Rosh Chodesh Nisan, 8th day from the 23rd of Adar. But if you're going to read that Yom HaShmini means the 8th day of the month of Nisan, and therefore the first of the 7 Miluyim would have been Rosh Chodesh Nisan. If that's the case, then when the pasuk says Hukam HaMishkan, which clearly our pasuk says Hukam HaMishkan on B'Shana Hashenis Echad L'Chodesh, on the first day of the month, B'Chodesh Rishon of the first month of Nisan, so then there would be no stira. There would be no question, because the Hukam HaMishkan automatically began on Rosh Chodesh Nisan and lasted for 8 days going forward. If indeed the first day of Miluyim was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and considering that Tanchuma does not say explicitly that the Yom HaShmini, that the day of Hukam HaMishkan is, the day of the Yom HaShmini, the last day of Miluyim is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which would make the beginning start 23rd, maybe you'll suggest that at least in the Tanchuma there's no question, because the Tanchuma is of the view that the first day of Miluyim is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and that's when Hukam HaMishkan began, that's when the miracle began, and so it went for 8 days. That's what you might have suggested. And this, says the Rebbe's Kadeya, Shehova, Ebenezer, Kan, Uberesh Pasha Shmini, and that would have been one of the views quoted in Ebenezer, that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the first of the Miluyim, not the 8th. And according to this Nefarish, you might have suggested to explain that when the pasuk says, and it wasn't the 8th day, he was talking about the 8th day of the month, and not the 8th day of Miluyim as Rashi teaches it, which would mean 8th day of Miluyim again would mean Rosh Chodesh Nisan, 8 days from Chav Gimel Adar. But rather, you could teach according to Tanchuma in this view of the Even Ezer that it's the 8th day of the month, making the first day of Miluyim Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and that would have been the day when Hukam HaMishkan miraculously going forward. The Deika Nami, and you can make this diuk. The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu erected it and disassembled it for 7 days of the Miluyim, basically upon B'chal either twice or 3 times every day, as we quoted before from the Machlekes and the Medrash. The Medrash there comes to this conclusion that it happened more than once, based on the fact that the pasuk repeats itself. It was erected, and he erected. Why does it say so many times? And then Bakamas B'Chesh Nisan, why does it say so many times? The Medrash concludes it's either twice or 3 times that he did it every single day. But that is all talking about Rosh Chodesh Nisan, all those the psukim that the Medrash quotes to prove that Moshe Rabbeinu erected and disassembled the Mishkan more than once every day is taken from psukim related to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which that would further support this idea that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the beginning of Miluyim. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the beginning of Miluyim, and Shmini is the 8th day of Miluyim, and that would resolve the question. But says the Rebbe, this is a doichik. Why is it a doichik? Because the Medrash there concludes that on that day, the 8th day of Miluyim, is the 8th day of Miluyim is, or on that day when the Hukam HaMishkan, the day was distinguished with 10 crowns. The Gemara in Shabbos also quotes this. The Gemara in Shabbos that we mentioned in footnote 6 also says this. And over Seder Olam, in this book Seder Olam, which predates the Gemara, before Shemei Miluyim Huschlu B'Chav Gimel Adar, there it says clearly that the Miluyim begins on the 23rd of Adar. Kaniskali, as mentioned before, over Yom Hashmini LeMiluyim Hayabachad B'Chodesh, and the 8th day of Miluyim is the first day of the month. Not the 8th day, not the 8th day of the month, but rather the first day of the month, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And thus, if the Tanchuma is quoting the Seder Olam, then means that Tanchuma is in concurrence with the view of Rashi that Shmini, or the predominant view actually, and the Gemara's view, and the other Midrashim quoted in the beginning of this Ha'ara, of Ha'ara 8, is concurrence with this view that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the 8th day of Miluyim, making the first day of Miluyim Chav Gimel Adar, making the big question. Hukam HaMishkan, the miracle that the Mishkan established on its own, only happens on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, clearly, as the pasuk here says, B'chodesh Arishin B'echad L'chodesh. And therefore, the Rebbe's question is substantiated, even according to the Tanchuma. How did Moshe Rabbeinu erect and disassemble and erect a number of times the Mishkan for 7 days straight before the miracle that happened on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that it happened automatically? L'chora, it was too heavy. Okay. Base. The reason why Moshe Rabbeinu spent 7 days erecting the Mishkan and taking it down after Baruch talking about Mishkan oil Moyed, even though Hashem only commanded him to erect the Mishkan on the first day of the month of Nisan. So why was he busy erecting it before from the 23rd going forward, from 23rd of Adar? So in his Baruch Barucha, in Likkutei Sichos Chelek it explains at length. In the footnote here it says Likkutei Sichos Chelek Sicha Aleph, but I believe it's actually Sicha Beis, at least in the way Likkutei Sichos we have it here. But if I did, the Rebbe explains at length Deis Rashi v'Ramban b'zeh, the opinions of Rashi and the Ramban as to why Moshe Rabbeinu was building the Mishkan and disassembling it before Hashem's command, when only Hashem really commanded him to erect it on the first of Nisan. So the Ramban writes, so this is explicit. The Ramban is explicit in his view. Hashem told him to begin with before the 7 days began. And you will erect the Mishkan in the manner that I have told you, or I will have shown you in the mountain. And therefore, and this came before. So in other words, Hashem is telling him right away to do it. And therefore, when the pasuk then later says that Hashem gives him a specific date of when you are going to erect it, this means that in the first day on Nisan, it's going to be erected in a permanent way, that it's going to stay. So from the fact that Hashem tells him on the one hand, build the Mishkan the way I showed you, and then Hashem tells him later, build the Mishkan in a permanent, fixed way on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So in the Yada, so Moshe Rabbeinu figured out, he figured out that he's going to have to erect it, because the pasuk says, Hashem told him build it, but the Hakamas Lamada, the Kima Lamida, the fact that it should stay permanently only happens in Chodesh Nisan, and therefore understood that the 7 days before he has to raise it up and put it down. So according to the Ramban, it's a kind of implicit tzivui from Hashem that he should erect the Mishkan and take it down. Why? Because Hashem said to erect it, so he had to erect it. But then Hashem only says to erect it permanently on Chodesh Nisan. So what does he do for the 7 days before? Erect it temporarily. Erect, disassemble, erect, disassemble. So this is the Ramban's view that it's a implied tzivui of Hashem. However, this is what the Rebbe explains there in Likkutei Sichos at length. From the fact that Rashi, when Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu to build the Mishkan to erect the Mishkan on the first day of Nisan, and Rashi does not teach Takum Lahamada that you should erect it permanently. Therefore, there's no reason to take the pasuk out of its simple meaning that Hashem is telling him to erect the Mishkan on that day. Masha is Philly, so the implication is that Rashi is of the view that when Hashem says on the first day, on the first month, talking about the Mishkan, on the first day you should build a Mishkan, not that it should be a permanent erecting, but there are temporary ones before. There's no reason to say that. From the fact that Rashi doesn't say it, there's no reason to say it. Just rather leave the pasuk simply that Hashem's telling him to build it on this day. Which means in Rashi's view, there is no command to erect the Mishkan before the first of Nisan. And therefore, according to the Satziva, talking about the Mishkan, and therefore, when Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, erect the Mishkan on the first day of the first month, it's not a separate command to when Hashem says, Mishkan, you will erect the Mishkan. Like the Ramban said. The Ramban said, the Pasuk says, Mishkan, that's talking about the 7 days of Miluyim to erect it, but in a temporary way because you're taking it down. And then when the Pasuk, when Hashem says, build the Mishkan on the first day of the month, that's talking about a permanent building. But from the fact that Rashi does not make this distinction and does not explicitly state that the Mishkan being built on the first of Nisan is lahamada, that it's a permanent way, means that it's b'chlal should be built then. And therefore, when the two psukim Vakimoisa and Vakimoisa, and then Vayaka Mesa Mishkan B'Echad L'Chodesh are not two separate commandments. They're just explaining one another. Hashem said Vakimoisa you shall build, and then Hashem went on to say Vayaka, and you'll build it on this day. That the fulfillment of this commandment should be done on the first of Nisan, but they're really one command. Now, if that's the case, according to Rashi's view, that there's only one command to build a Mishkan on the first of Nisan, why did Moshe Rabbeinu decide to build it, to erect it, and disassemble it every single day for the 7 days before that day of Nisan, from the 23rd of Adar going to Rosh Chodesh Nisan for 7 days? So the Rebbe explains. And this again is explained at length over there in Likkutei Sichos. Mashim in Chelek days. Mashim and Moshe said Mishkan Lefnei Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu erected the Mishkan before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, even though he wasn't explicitly commanded to do so, or even implicitly, he derived from another command. Hashem told him to be mechanech, to induct the Kohanim and to iron his children into the service of the Beis Hamikdash. And the only way to do this induction properly is so that is only so in a way where they will learn to do kabbanas in the manner and the place where the kabbanas should be done, which is in the Mishkan. And therefore, in order to have the induction of the Kohanim, you have to have the Mishkan. And that's why I figured out he has to build a Mishkan before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Ubikar primarily, that was implicit. Hashem said, teach them how to do the kabbalah. They figured it has to have a Mishkan. But then it's explicit. Hashem tells them straight up, that the 7 days of induction should be at the opening of the oil moed, at the entrance of the oil moed. If that's the case, the other start locking a Mishkan. If though he had to have a Mishkan, he had to have an oil moed in which to fulfill the command. So according to the Ramban, there are two commandments. Hashem says once, build a Mishkan for 7 days. Hashem tells him once to build a Mishkan temporarily. And then Hashem tells him the second, and that was for the 7 days. And then Hashem tells him to build a permanent on Chodesh Nisan. And that's when the miracle happened, where it raised up itself. Whereas, in the view of Rashi, there's no two commandments. There's one command to build a Mishkan on the first of Nisan. And the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan during the 7 Zayin Yemei Meluyim is so that he can properly do the chinuch of Aaron Abanov. He has to have a Mishkan in order to do it. Now, Pisa, according to this Bishop, the Ramban, all is well if you follow the view that the Ramban Shalamod is a Mishkan B'Zayin Yemei Meluyim. Hayatziva Miyuchada Ev Shaloimar. So that, according to the Ramban, that there was a special command specifically to build the Mishkan temporarily for 7 days, every day temporarily picking it up and putting it down. So then you can answer, at least you can squeeze the answer, that Hashem also, no, it's Hashem commanded him, okay, so Hashem gave him the strength to be able to erect it. And that too is also included in the fact that it was erected automatically. Why is it a doichik? The Rebbe doesn't say so, but seemingly it's a doichik because the diuk of Hukum HaMishkan only comes by Rish Chedesh Nisan. And you have to be doichik to say that the diuk of Hukum HaMishkan by Rish Chedesh Nisan applies retroactively to the 7 days before. It's a shtickle doichik, even though in theory you could say so because Hashem commanded, so Hashem gave the koyach to do it. On the metal das Rashi, according to Rashi, you don't have this doichik. According to Rashi, that the 7 days that he was building the Mishkan and disassembling it during a chinuch of Aaron Abanov was not al piyat zivoy. How did he have the power? Notwithstanding the weight and heaviness of the krashim, to erect it every single day for 7 days straight, and sometimes, according to some opinions, twice and 3 times as we saw in the Hara. Okay, it's a very pashut shaila. Certainly in Rashi and even in Tanchuma, as we said, and the bottom line question is, before the miracle of the Mishkan erecting on its own by Hashem's hand, after Moshe put his hand there, we are told clearly that Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan at a minimum 7 times. And if he couldn't do it on the 8th time, because Hashem had to give him the help, how was he able to do it the first 7? Very pashut shaila. It's almost so obvious that it's like, it's a valvtzich in the egen. Once you hear the question, you can't unhear it. That's so obvious. Now, Babir B'zeh says the explanation. Ha'ilish b'Rosh Nisan, the virtue of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Yom HaShmini L'Meluyim, the 8th day of Meluyim, which also have a kvod Hashem Molei HaMishkan. It's clearly, obviously, that at that point, the Eibish's presence resides in the Mishkan. The Shorsa by Shechina, the presence of Hashem resides. And this is already stated in our parsha, in Parshas Pekuday already. And not just, even though it's repeated and more elaborately described in the beginning of Parshas Shmini, but it's already described here in Parshas Pekuday. We're going to see soon in one of the footnotes that was going to add what the description of Parshas Shmini adds to the description of Parshas Pekuday. So the Ilui, the virtue of the Rosh Chodesh Nisan is that the presence of the Eibishter resided as opposed to the 7 days before. And not so with respect to the 7 days preceding Rosh Chodesh Nisan when Moshe Rabbeinu was doing the induction of the Kohanim, the presence of Hashem was not there. Heart of 16. As the Gemara says in Shabbos, quoting from Seder Olam, this is the same Shabbos and Seder Olam we quoted before in the previous footnotes, that on the first day of the month, the Mishkan was erected. So say Chazal, Rishon, it's the first, and it says there it's the first to a number of things, and amongst them is Rishon, Lishkan, Shechina. It's the first time the Shechina resided. Even though for 7 days there was a Mishkan before, erected and disassembled, but now it's the first time the Shechina is present. And that's of course the primary uniqueness. Back to the Panim, Lapidas Rashi, and therefore according to Rashi, moving B'Pash is understood obviously, it's understood clearly, according to Rashi's view, why the presence of Hashem did not reside during the 7 days. Even though the Pasuk says that make for me your home, and I will dwell in it. Meaning, the fact the presence of Hashem residing, which is the pasuk is only dependent on the fact that the Mishkan should be there. So as soon as they build the Mikdash, right away the Shechina should come. But nonetheless, in other words, which would mean even on Chav Gimel Adar at the beginning of Meluyim, nevertheless, it still didn't happen. Why? Because according to Rashi's view, the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan for 7 days before the Rosh Chodesh Nisan was not as a result of Hashem's command to build a Mishkan. It was a side point in order to fulfill the command for the chinuch of Aaron Abanov. So the fulfillment of Va'asli Mikdash wasn't done yet, and therefore there's no V'shachanti B'Zoichem. The command to build a Mishkan only happens in Chodesh Nisan, even though it implied from a different command to build a Mishkan for 7 days before, but it wasn't the Vasli Mikdash. It was only a prat, there was a detail in a different thing that he had to be Mechanech Aaron Abanav. And therefore, according to Rashi, it's clear why the presence of Hashem didn't reside, why there was no Vishachat B'Seichel. Now, what about the Ramban? According to the Ramban, where there was a command for 7 days to build a Mishkan, in a temporary oifen, but still there was a command to build a Mishkan for 7 days. So it says that Rebbe V'Gamma, that's Ramban, even according to the Rebbe that even the fact that the Mishkan was erected for 7 days before is because Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to build a Mishkan as I have shown you, and that the Ramban derived to mean a temporary building for 7 days, one temporary for each day. Harim Mefarish. The Ramban himself says, Shu'ulai, perhaps, what was the reason why Hashem gave him the command? In order that the Levim should get used to doing their work. Hainu, meaning to say, this is about getting the Levim accustomed to be mechanech them in the ways of serving the Beis Midrash. Or says the Ramban, another reason why, in order to give the Reish Chodesh Nisan this uniqueness, this specialty, this crown, that it has a permanence. All to say, the difference between the way the Mishkan stood each of the days of the 7 days before to the way in which the Mishkan was erected on the 8th day, Mishkan, is similar to the distinction between the Mishkan at all, which was a temporary dwelling, the Beis Hamikdash, which was a permanent dwelling for Hashem. The presence of Hashem didn't reside, which means like this: even when Hashem commanded Moshe Rabbeinu to build a Mishkan temporarily, it was just that, commanded to be temporary. Meaning to say, even though there's a command, it doesn't take on the same level as the command of Yom HaShmini. Another ayah to this is the Mishkan versus the Beis Hamikdash. Even though the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash are both mitzvahs, are both commandments, and yet the kvius of the Beis Hamikdash is on a whole new level than the kvius of the Mishkan. And likewise, the kvius of Yom Shmini far surpasses the building of the 7 days, which were not kvius at all. It was only temporary, and possibly only Hashem commanding him in order to fulfill some other thing, in order to make the Reish Chodesh Nisan unique, or in order to be mechanech the kohanim. So even though there's a command, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the permanent building of the Mishkan. And in order to he the Rebbe says, "K'mish kasav re'ei yud beis tes ki loy basem ad atal menucha v'al nachala." The pasuk is telling us. This pasuk is in Parshas Re'ei. Is Re'ei Yud Beis Tes, where there the Pesukim is telling us that when you get to Eretz Yisrael, you'll get rid of all the Avodah Zarah that's there from the previous occupiers, and then saying, only in the place Hashem is going to choose, there you're going to bring your kabbanas, there you're going to bring all your oilus and davis, and there you're going to eat, and there you're going to rejoice on the thing. Only there you're going to do it. And then the pasuk concludes, because until that juncture you will have not arrived at my permanent resting place and my permanent inheritance, which Hashem is going to give you. Which means the pasuk itself is saying that Hashem is saying right now that the Mishkan you're in is only temporary, because you haven't arrived at the permanent place, which is the Beis Hamikdash coming soon, as the pasuk says in Parshas Re'ei. Likewise, the pasuk in Shmuel, Mishkan, Hashem was moving, not permanent, in the oil of Mishkan, and Rambam, the Gemara making a distinction between the Mishkan and the Mikdash as one being temporary Kedusha and one being permanent Kedusha. Now, footnote 19, Parsha Shmini. Now, what is added in Parsha Shmini? Because I mentioned before that in Parsha Pekuday, it already mentioned that the Shechina is coming down, and Rebbe just finished saying that the primary uftu Ilui of the 8th day is that the Mishkan, the first day of Nisan, which is the 8th day of Eluyim, is that the presence of Hashem resided. So what was added in Parsha Shmini? So says the Rebbe, Parsha Shmini Nischadish Sarach Lis Gamkin Karbonos Aron V'Dosai. That Parsha Shmini, the primary addition to the story that's not filled in the story of Pekuday, is the Karbonos of Aaron and all the things they had to do. Now, V'hini L'chura Kashya Mikrad of Asli Mikdash we take Shanti B'Sayich K'Bifnim. Now, L'chura, why would I need the Karbonos to get the presence of Hashem? L'chura, as soon as you fulfill the command of Asli Mikdash, right away there should be Shvachanti. Why do I have to have the Karbonos? In the command or in the description of Hashem telling the Yidden that when you build a Mishkan, the presence of Hashem is going to reside, it doesn't say anywhere that you're going to build a Mishkan and then serve me and then my presence will reside. Hashem says, should happen right away. So the fact that in Parsha Shmini was Neschadish that you have to have Karbonos first also seems to be a question. So said that Rabbi Levi might suggest the Karbonos the Karbonos was not to elicit the presence of Hashem, but rather to remove a blockage that was preventing the presence of Hashem going to the Shekhinah. In other words, like this: the building of the Mishkan itself is what elicits the Eibish's presence, but because the Yidden sinned in the Lekkutei Egel, they had to do kapara for that. And once they removed the stain of the Lekkutei Egel, automatically the V'asli Mikdash elicited the Shekhinah. So this Rashi is the Rashi in Parsha Shmini, where Rashi is describing at length how for 7 days the Rashi is like this. When Aaron saw that he did everything he had to, and the Shechinah didn't come down, he was tired, he was angry, he was upset, he was pained. Like Hashem is angry at me, and because of me, the presence of Hashem didn't come down because he was involved in the Lekkutei Egel. And then it goes on to say that Moshe Rabbeinu went in, back to Eibishter, and the presence came down. And then the pasuk goes on to say that Moshe Rabbeinu benched him, and it gives a lengthy bracha that may be the presence of Hashem rest in your handiwork in building this Mishkan. And then Rashi goes on to say that for 7 days, this is Rashi, the second time Rashi mentioned this, that for 7 days Moshe Rabbeinu was erecting the Mishkan and the presence of Hashem wasn't coming down, and the Yidden were upset. You're putting all this effort and the presence of Hashem is still not here, until they found out, and they were saying, we're waiting for the Shekhinah to come down, and that way we'll know that we were forgiven. And then the Rashi concludes, and then we will know that we were chosen, or that Aaron was chosen, once the presence come down. Which means, the Rebbe is pointing from these things, that the issue of the Karbonos is that, in other words, it's not that the Karbonos themselves elicit the presence of Hashem, but the presence of Hashem coming down informs us that the issue which we did to prevent the Shekhinah is now removed. That's the way Rashi describes it. Hashem is angry at me, and because of me, it's not coming down. In other words, it should be there, but Hashem is angry at me, says Aaron, and that's why it's not coming down. And likewise, the Yidden are saying, we did everything, but we don't know for sure that Hashem is forgiving us. Meaning we did what's right, and that in and of itself should bring the Shekhinah, but it could be there's another issue. We need kapara before it comes down. And likewise, maybe Aaron's the wrong person, even though the Asli Mikdash is the right thing, but maybe Aaron's the wrong person. And by the Shekhinah coming down, now we know that he was the right person to do it. But not because his avodah elicited the bringing of the Shekhinah, but rather because it removed the stain of the Lekkutei Egel. Okay. So what we have so far is that the uniqueness of the 8th day Miluyim is the Shekhinah coming into the Mishkan. That's the uniqueness of the Yom HaShmini of Miluyim, which is the first day of Nisan. Now, continue Dalet. This uniqueness of the 8th day, Ma'losai Legabe Zayin Yemei Miluyim, and its virtue above and beyond the 7 days that preceded it, in which Moshe Rabbeinu was erecting and disassembling the Mishkan, is expressed in many different ways, many different elements of the day. And as the Gemara says, we quoted this Gemara before, the Seder Olam and the Gemara, Balash Pirish Rashi, and as Rashi paraphrases, quotes that Gemara, Asher Hukom Mishkan, boy, the day that the Mishkan was erected, the Shchelish Nissen, boy, that day, Natal Yudat Haris, there were 10 crowns, 10 unique ways in which that day was distinguished. Rashi doesn't list them, the Gemara and the Seder Olam does. Now, so there are so many ways in which this day is distinguished as a result of the fact that the presence of Hashem is coming, and therefore Pshita should certainly Chelek by Fanakamas Mishkan. And therefore it's clear that the way in which the Mishkan was built on day number 8 would be different than the way it was built in the other 7 days, because this is the unique day when Hashem's presence is coming. Ubehektim, and by prefacing. And that makes 2 points, and when you combine the 2 points, we get the answer to our question. Yedua, it's well known, we know from various different buildings that are built with very big stones, beginning with the Doda HaFlaga, who built the tower that Rishon B'Shamayim, its head was in the heavens, the top of the building was in the heavens. The aim was like kol pelaklal, and no one has any question, hey, how was it built? Why? No Rashi commenting how did they do it. It needs a miracle to build big buildings. Because many people get together and build it. It's that simple. But yet in our case, when it comes to the Mishkan, we say the way Rashi quotes the Medrash in Tanchuma, that no one was able to erect it because of how heavy the Kroshim was. No one was able to make the Kroshim stand up. It was so heavy. Only Moshe did it. And only this. It was only as if it looked like he erected it, because really Hashem was doing it. So what's the point here? The b'diak in this is Shum Adam, no person, Yechidi, an individual. An individual couldn't do it on its own. And that's the way Hashem wanted it to be on the 8th day, that a single individual do it. That for the 7 days before, it could have been anybody. Now, point number 2 is going to get to this idea of how we know that Hashem wanted one single individual to build it on the 8th day. But for now, let's just get this clear, that the 7 days of Miloyim, it wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu himself erecting and disassembling. It could have been tons of people. On the 8th day, there's the big problem, because Hashem wants it to be done by a single individual, and how is that able to be done? And there's the Pella. So this in essence answers our question. We just need to understand how we get to the conclusion that Hashem is commanding one person. Where do we pick this idea from? So we'll get that in base. But before we get to that, first, in footnote 22, the Rebbe says, Ein Gam Kein Le'il, Amud 165 Elech, where there, the Rebbe discusses Betzalel, the Rashi describing Betzalel as the one who built the Aron, and the Rebbe there learns in Rashi that it wasn't Betzalel himself who did it, but lots of people who did it, but yet the pasuk is Vayas Betzalel. So the Rebbe is making note of that. The Rebbe is saying, see that as well. So maybe it kind of means that even if Moshe Rabbeinu isn't doing it, I'm going to leave it as is and let you to decide what this means. But that's what the Rebbe talked about over there. Now, in 22 with the star says like this. With respect to the question of what was Moshe Rabbeinu's involvement during those 7 days, if, as the Rebbe just said, the 7 days before, there's no reason to assume that it was Moshe doing it alone, with many people with him. So what was Moshe's involvement? In Rashi's Pirush, we can go in 2 directions. One based on the Rashi's Pirush in Pekuday, the first time it describes the day, the Rish Chodesh Nisan, and the other way, the way Rashi describes it in Parashat Shmini. In each of these ways of answering this question of what Moshe Rabbeinu's involvement was during the 7 days, Tidutz, there is an answer to a problem that arises in the other pshat. So each pshat takes a different direction, and the direction one takes answers a question from the other one, and the direction the other one takes answers a question from the other direction. Namely, the Pirush Rashi Pekuday, the way Rashi frames it in Pekuday, Mashma that Moshe Rabbeinu lokach shum Chelek b'Mishkan. That the implication is that Moshe Rabbeinu did not take any part in building the Mishkan. 10, where there the Rebbe writes that from the fact that Rashi writes Shum Malacha, the implication is that even bringing the donations, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do there. The Rebbe is discussing there how come Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't involved in the command of bringing donations. And the Rebbe proves from this Rashi, which is that Rashi says Shum Malacha. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do any Malacha. The Rashi in Pekuday describing Moshe Rabbeinu's not a lack of involvement up until the point of erecting the Mishkan. Rashi says they didn't do Shum Malacha, and Mistabrish Kavanasa Higam Lahava, which, as we learned in Pekuday Aleph from Chelek Yud Aleph, from this Chelek, that Malacha includes donation, which means Moshe Rabbeinu didn't even do donation. All to say that according to the Rashis in Pekuday, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do anything up until the point of erecting the Mishkan. Until the Mishkan was erected. According to this, Galat Hahem Shechsham. And according to that, the flow of the verses, the flow of the psukim there in Parshas Pekuday follows and makes sense. That only on the 8th day was on B'Yom HaChesed, the 8th day of Miluyim, on the Chodesh Nisan, Moshe Rabbeinu was told, put your hand there. And this was the miracle that happened. No one could do it because he was doing it alone as opposed to a bunch of people, and therefore he had to put his hand there. Which would mean, according to this interpretation, in this reading, that for the 7 days, other people picked it up and down, and Moshe Rabbeinu did nothing. And therefore comes the 8th day, and a single individual has to do it. No one knows what to do. Hashem says, okay, look, you didn't do anything yet. Put your hand and it's going to jump up. One understanding. Now, of course, it would seem that the kasha, right, the Rebbe said that each one of the Purishim has a kasha that's answered by the other one. The kasha l'chora here is that Rashi says, in Parshas Shmini, that Rashi read before, that for 7 days Moshe Rabbeinu was erecting it and taking it down. And here we're suggesting Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do anything. Maybe this is what Rebbe is referring to in the previous footnote. But okay, so that's the approach taken in the Rashi in Pekuday. Pirish Rashi Shmini, and our Rashi in Shmini, Mefurish Kimu Moshe Kol Zayomim. This is where, as I just mentioned, Rashi says straight up that the Moshe Rabbeinu built it for 7 days, and then he disassembled it each of the 7 days. Now, if that's the way, let's say he did that along with other people. Valpiza Glatam Muktim Sham. Over there, it would make sense in Shmini, Shekol Zayom Nasa Kol Adei Moshe. It prefaces before it gets to what happened on day number 8, it prefaces by describing all the things Moshe did on the 7 days. So in the context of Parshas Shmini, it fits better to say that Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in the building, maybe with other people, but still involved in the building of the Mishkan of the 7 days. Whereas in Parshas Pekuday, where there the stress is that Moshe did nothing until Hashem told him, put your hand and let it pop up on the Chodesh Nisan, it would mean Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do anything for 7 days straight. And just other people assembled it and erected it and disassembled it. Okay, so later the Rebbe is going to point out that even the Rashi in Pekuday, which says that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do anything, the language here is very interesting. The Rebbe points out. All right, it's Lamed Tes Lamed Gimel. So it says like this: the people brought the Mishkan to Moshe, and says the Rashi, the Yidden couldn't direct it. Because Moshe didn't do anything, and Moshe Rabbeinu left Hashem left the erecting for Moshe Rabbeinu to do because nobody else can do it because of how heavy the Krashim were. And then Rashi says 2 words, Moshe Midon. And Moshe put them together. And then Rashi goes on, Moshe said to Hashem, how could one person do it? Hashem said, you put your hand there, and it'll look like you're picking it up. And it's going to jump up on its own. That's why it says the Mishkan was erected on its own. But before Rashi gets into Moshe complaining to Hashem that they can't do it, Rashi says the words of Moshe and Midday, Moshe erected it. Which seems to contradict the rest of the whole story. Those 2 words of Moshe and Midday should be taken out. They should just read, no one can do it. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu complained to Hashem, how could someone do it? Why does he interrupt between the description that no one could do it and Moshe complained to Hashem, Moshe and Midday? Now later the Rebbe is going to explain this previous inyan on what this means. But over here already the Rebbe is telling us, see there, so there's already this implication that Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in the building of the Mishkan during those 7 days. Because there's the words, Vakima Moshe, Moshe built it at that time when he didn't brought it to him. And that's Taka, what the Rebbe cites to, the Rebbe says to look in Ha'ara 38, and that which is quoted in the Shulei HaGilyon. Now in the Shulei HaGilyon there, the Rebbe quotes Chelek Vav, Amud 229, Ha'ara 26. And there, (229) Ha'ara 26 says there like this: that by the very fact that they brought it to Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Rashi therefore describes that the Yidden couldn't put it that no one could put it together, and then it says that Moshe put it, Mash Moshe Midik Shavir Love. It seems that Moshe built it when they brought it to him. And therefore the Rebbe proves that it wasn't on Shabbos. They were discussing there about what day of the week the Lechem Aponim was done, and they were making a calculation as to when the 8th day of Miluim was based on when the first day of Miluim was. And the Rebbe says that the first day of Miluim could not have been Shabbos. Why? Because from the very fact that they all brought the thing to Moshe and said we couldn't do it, and Moshe did it, means he did it right then and there. Again, implying that Moshe Rabbeinu was somewhat involved in the building of the Mishkan, even if other people were helping him. Now, Mashkas Pirush Rashi now. Now, from these two Rashis, one in Pekuday and one in Shmini, where there it discusses Benegillah Berachas Shetisha Shechina, where in each of these places, in Shmini and in Pekuday, it talks about the bracha that Moshe Rabbeinu gives to the Yidden, that the presence of Hashem should reside in their work. V'noim Hashem Elokeinu. So, in Pekuday, it seems from Rashi, or it seems clear from Rashi, that the bracha Moshe Rabbeinu gave them was right then and there when they brought it to him on Chav Gimel Adar, certainly before the first day of Nisan. Ubishmini, on the 8th day of Nisan, it was when Moshe and Aaron came out of the Mishkan, telling the people that the presence of Hashem is about to come down, which was on the 8th day. On the 8th day of Miluim, meaning on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So, it seems like it's 2 different days. Well, L'chora said that Rabbi Yishem b'derech upon him, we might suggest, at least b'derech, shu al derech shemazirin l'fnei ma'isa b'shas ma'isa. This is similar to this idea that you warn people, you encourage people before the work is done. You give them the instruction, and then while it's being done, you again tell them what's going to happen. So likewise, before the Mishkan is erected 7 days earlier, Moshe Rabbeinu is giving them the bracha, and then when it actually happens, he again reiterates the bracha. Now, anyway, so before we get to that, the Rebbe puts 2 psukim here, Perish Rashi, Yisrei Tes Chav Daled, and Baloischa Tes Daled. So in Yisrei, it's talking about when Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded a second time to tell the Yidden not to come near the mountain, and Rashi there comments that before Hashem gave the general instruction, now he's told again, don't come close to the mountain, B'shas Ma'isa. And likewise, in Baloischa, it says there that it's B'shana Hashenis, when the Eden came out of Mitzrayim the second year. Now they're fulfilling the mitzvah of Pesach. They're performing the Yom Tov of Pesach with all the mitzvahs involved. And the pasuk therefore says, Moshe Rabbeinu commanded the Eden to do the Pesach, to do the Korban Pesach. And Rashi comments that even though they were already told before to do the Korban Pesach, but now that it's a year later and they're actually getting it done, Moshe Rabbeinu repeats it. Okay, so this is the way I understand this footnote, and I'm opening the floor. If you have any other way of understanding this footnote, please let me know. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the Rebbe says here that it's b'doichek akaponim. In other words, the Rebbe seems to have a problem with the fact that there's 2 brachas, one at the beginning on the Chav Gimel Adar, and one on the fact that it's on the Rosh Chodesh Nisan later. And they're about to say that b'doichek akaponim, the Rebbe writes that it's Moshe Rabbeinu is giving them a bracha first before and then once in the middle. Now, I don't know why it's a doichik. This is me speaking, because in Pekuday Aleph, 2 Sichos ago, they gave a whole lengthy beer as the difference in teichen between the bracha given on Chav Gimel Adar and the bracha given on Rosh Nisan. The bracha given on Adar was between Moshe and the Yidden, primarily the work of the Yidden, and Moshe Rabbeinu was only an added part to it, as explained in the Sikha there at length. And the bracha on Aleph Nisan was primarily to the work of Moshe and Aaron, and through them to all Yidden. So, given that the Teichen is different, and they give a whole beautiful explanation for why the Teichen is different, and the Rebbe puts there in Ha'ara 20 quite clearly that Moshe So I don't know why it's a doichik, or what the problem is that there's that the bracha is repeated twice. I'm not 100% sure, and if anybody has any ideas, put in the comments or let me know in some way. Okay, back to the Pneumatic. So a component what we have here is the Rebbe is establishing this idea that the 7 days before Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do it himself, he did it with others. And the footnote, whenever the Rebbe went that length, to what degree was Moshe Rabbeinu's involvement during those 7 days? Either none at all, or somewhat, and this seems to be the difference between the Rashi's Parshat Pekuday versus the Rashi's Parshat Pnimi. Now the question becomes, where do we get this idea that on the 8th day it had to be one person, and therefore there had to be a miracle? And you're saying that the 7 days, it's understood from the way other buildings are built, that's lots of people, so why can't you say something about the 8th? Why do you have to have a miracle, or no one could do it, and Moshe put his hand, and it popped up? And this is base. Even though we don't have the command that the first time it's erected, b'yachid, that it has to be done by a singular, there are various different times throughout the Chumash where the command, and the Rebbe puts in the footnote, where there the Rebbe talks about this idea that sometimes Hashem gives a command in a close to Ka'ifin, and it's very possible Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu all the details, but the pasuk does not have to write down all those details. And then as it plays out, we see the details that Hashem commanded. But in the way the Torah relates the commandment, doesn't have to be there. So likewise here, from the very fact that the pasuk says, "Vayaka Moshe did it in the singular," we know that Hashem told him to do it in the singular. But the pasuk doesn't have to say it. That's number one. And then the Rebbe continues in that Ha'ara, footnote 24, over here it's even furthermore, because there's a stira, right? The Tanchuma raises a stira. On the one hand, the pasuk says, "V'hukom Mishkan came on its own." On the other hand, the pasuk says, "Vayaka Moshe erected it." So was it erected on its own, or was it Moshe? So now we have a better way of coming to this conclusion, or it's more implied from the pasuk that there was a command for a single individual to do it, that there's a backstory here. So in other words, never mind the fact that Bechlal, there could be times when Hashem gives a command by klali, or at least the way the pasuk writes down the command is by klali, and we discover the details in the way it's fulfilled, which could be the same thing here, by the very fact that it says Vayaka Moshe in the singular. But moreover, there's actually over here implication in the very description that there's something going on, because it says Hukam, and then Vayakam, and therefore there's a backstory. And therefore it doesn't have, the pasuk doesn't have to say explicitly that Hashem commanded one person to do it. It's understood from the way it played out. And then we said Parshas Ela Atzman, and in these Parshas itself, in the description of the Mishkan, which is repeated, first Hashem's commandment, and then Moshe repeats it, and then when it's done, the description of Mishkan goes on for quite a bit. And Nimtzu Kama Vakama Pratim Basiyas HaMishkan, the various different details within the making of the Mishkan Shalem Tzibah Aleim, which we find in the way it was constructed. We find certain details that are not described in the way in which it's commanded. And there are sometimes details in the way in which it was built that seem to be in contradiction to the way it was commanded. And the way that Rashi himself says it, Hikashti, I've been struggling with this. But on this issue, Khan over here, who Omer, it says this way, and when it comes to Hashem's commandment, to Omer, it says another way. So there isn't really such a problem with the fact that there's no command explicitly that a single individual should do it. We understand it from the way it plays out. Especially, as I said in the footnote, considering the fact that there's a stira in the Pesukim, Vayakam and Hukah. Furthermore, I might say that actually there is a command that one person should do it. This is actually the meaning of the Pasuk, of the command. When Hashem says in Parshas Truma Vaki Moisa, and you shall build Lashon Yachdas HaMishkan Kamishpat Asher Reisa, that Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you should build a Mishkan in the way in which I showed you. So Rashi there says, that's the pasuk. So Rashi says this, in other words, by the time you will come to a building, I will have showed you. I will show you then, and I will teach you and show you the way in which it's supposed to be done. it says there like this, pointing out from that Rashi. Only Hashem says, you will do it. The way in which I showed you, Moshe. And according to Rashi, unlike the Ramban, which said that Moshe is talking about the 7 days of temporary building, and Vayakam and Bayamo, and when Hashem says that you should build it the second time, it's talking about in the permanent way. But Rashi said that there's actually one command that we said before. So we might say this is talking about what Rashi means in the pasuk. I Yachid in the singular. We just read the Rashi before. Will show you, will teach you and show you in the singular. The simple meaning is Hashem himself that Hashem. This is the Rebbe adding in Rashi. Going back to the quote from Rashi, right? The parentheses, the Rebbe's words, and the outside is the Rashi. That I in the singular will show you in the singular, and not just show you. I actually showed you in doing it. Say there, kamasa, the way in which it's supposed to be done. Shall I say there? The word say there, which I just translated the way in which it's supposed to be done. I'm translating it based on what they're about to say now. Because the word say there, pirush, means, it doesn't mean just mean order, as in what comes first and what comes last. I'm going to show you which to do first and which to do second. It means the order. How is this done? What are the details in general? Kumai, Seder Haggadah Ketzib, like you say, the Seder Haggadah. The Seder Haggadah is not just about what comes first and what comes next, but it's Bechlal, knowing all the details. It's the structure of the Haggadah, the structure of the night of the Seder. So likewise, the structure of the Mishkan was shown to Moshe Rabbeinu in a singular form. Okay, so this answers our question. Basic question was, how is Moshe Rabbeinu able to build a Mishkan for 7 days before when L'chori needed a nest on the 8th day? Answer, on the 8th day, Moshe was commanded to do it on his own. Either that command is not explicitly understood in the verse, in the pasuk, but it's understood from the way it played out, that was the command, or actually that was the command in according to Rashi, where Hashem says, I will show you in singular. And therefore, unlike the 7 days beforehand, where there was no command that he has to build it in this particular fashion. So, the fact that he had to build it in order for the chinuch to go on, he could have elicited the help of hundreds and thousands of Yidden to help him build a Mishkan. So what's the problem? The only problem becomes on day number 8, where Hashem wants him to do it alone. Then the question becomes, how could he do it? And there is the miracle. So this answers the pashtus of Rashi, with all the various different details and the beautiful details in the Ha'ara. Now comes the Chassidus. From the deeper ideas in Rashi. There's well known this idea that there is a relationship with Hashem. It's a two-way correlation. It's just Latata, a Yid from below to above, he initiates, and just Latata, from above to below, Hashem initiates. And in this Latata, and when it comes to Latata for Hashem's initiation, from awakening from above, Beis Dargas are two levels. There is the awakening from above that comes in response to a Jew's initiation, in which case, that which Hashem invests in return to the Jew's investment is they're in sync. They are in accord with each other. The way in which a person invests, that's the way in which Hashem responds. That's one level. And then there's a level of there's a way in which Hashem initiates beyond or irrespective of what the Jew is doing. Even though then what I do is incomparable. Even though these two Leilas are incomparable to each other, because one is in accordance with what I've done, and one is beyond anything I've ever expected, or without my initiation at all, there's a certain common theme between them, in that they are both coming from above to below. That's not the place to get into it. The bottom line is there's initiation from below to above, and there's initiation from above to below where Hashem responds, or not responds, but either way, it's Hashem's action and Hashem's investment in us versus our investment in Hashem. Rebbe says, now it's well known in these two categories, there's a virtue in each one of these two things, the initiation from below versus Hashem's response from above. The virtue of that which, of Hashem's initiation, Hashem's investment, that which is, the revelation is much greater when it's initiated on Hashem's terms. Because it's on Hashem's terms. It's infinite, and therefore it's much greater. But the virtue of the investment from below to above, that it refines me. Even though the little bit of Gilui Lekutei that I will elicit through my own avodah is incomparable to the Gilui Lekutei Hashem will grant me if He decides to do so. So l'chura, if you're going to measure the level of Gilui Lekutei, Elo wins. Nonetheless, there's a certain chidush, a uniqueness in the avodah that a person does my investment. There's a certain preciousness, unique preciousness. Because if it's from above to below, I'm a passive recipient. I'm not part of this. But when I invest, now I am coming up. And there's a chidush there. And here the Rebbe puts in the footnote there to look in 28, it says, look at the Torah at the end of Parshas Bamidbar, where there, the Rebbe quotes the famous Torah of the Magid. I think it's from the Magid. Yeah, about the way to get a king, a marshal, way to get a king, to get his attention is by bringing in order to get the king's attention to listen to a simpleton, is bring some sort of chiddush, bring a young child that he can play with, something endearing, bring a tzipor madaberes, a bird that talks, and this ultimately compares to avodas hamatam, in that because a yid is in Ilam Haza Agashmi, and he's not in Atzilus in some lofty way, and he has to work and he has to toil, there's a chiddush b'davar. It's much more endearing, even though the level of Gilul, of course, is much greater if Hashem were to initiate. But when a Yid initiates, there's a chavivus, it's much more endearing, it's much more unique. Va'ad, he's the Rebbe in the Pnim, a person would much prefer to have one measure of something that he has earned rather than 9 measures of somebody else, even though 9 measures are much greater, but it's not as precious. And this is the distinction, says the Rebbe, between the 7 days leading 7 days in Miluyim, between Chav Gimel Nis Adar and Rish Chodesh Nisan, and the day of Rish Chodesh Nisan itself, Yom Shmini Miluyim, which is the 8th day of Miluyim. The 7 days leading up to the Mishkan, they erect leading up to Rish Chodesh Nisan, they erect the Mishkan no less than 7 times. We said before this could have been even more, twice a day, 3 times a day. Now, according to Rashi, which there was no explicit command to do so, Moshe derived it implicitly from the fact that he had to do the chinuch for the Aaron Abonav. He realized he had to have a Mishkan. There is a certain uniqueness, a certain preciousness, a certain endearing quality to this Mishkan, in that Moshe is understood on his own. We have to build this Mishkan for Hashem. Avodah Samata, the service from below to above. The Rebbe says in footnote 31, that was the education. Education meaning from below to above. Ulam chinuch, the induction. Ulam however, there's a nice mishkan, but nonetheless, this doesn't make a mishkan. Doesn't make a mishkan. The point of the mishkan is v'shachanti, Hashem's presence, and as endearing as it is, it doesn't elicit the essence of Hashem. The presence of Hashem is still not there. On the 8th day. When then it was erected based on the explicit command, only then does the presence of Hashem reside, because then with the command of Hashem, now it has the virtue of the investment on Hashem's part, and then the Shechina can be there. In footnote 32, the fact that the first day, Bris Milah is connected to the number 8, because number 8 is transcendent, right? 7 is 7 days of the week, 7 midas of Shtalshlos, and 8 is Malam Seder Shtalshlos, and therefore Milah being connected to 8 is a Sirsa Le'ila, an investment from Hashem that's beyond anything that's capable of coming from being elicited from below. Now the Kli Yakar says, now the Kli Yakar, in the beginning of Parsha Shmini, which actually mentions this idea that Shmini of the Bris is Lamaila Shemer HaHekef, it's beyond the system, is connected to the 8th day of Hakamas HaMishkan, which is the pasuk there, but Yom HaShmini, it's the pasuk the Kli Yakar is commenting on. So connecting these ideas, that Shmini is just Leila, Shlamaila, Mr. Is there a Sit Leila that's beyond what's capable of being reached by your sister Latata? That's the Bris Milah, and the Bris Milah is connected to Yom HaShmini v'Hakamas HaMishkan. That means that Hakamas HaMishkan is really an investment from Hashem beyond that which is capable of a Yid that which is beyond a Yid is capable of reaching through his own investment. It's just Leila. Shalamaylam is just letatam bagashasham. When it's probably the Maskal B'Yim Hashmini Tafshin Dalit, Likkutei Sichos Exam 237. Okay. The Gamal Das Ramban, back in the opinion, even in the opinion of the Ramban, where B'Zayin Yom Hoya in Yinhar Golas Halavim Amata, where according to the Ramban, there was a command to build a temporary Mishkan for 7 days, each day temporarily, and then taking it down. But according to the Ramban, then also, there was also a Yinhar Golas Halavim Amata. It was all about, Ramban gave 2 reasons for why Hashem would have done this. One, to help the Levim get used to serving the Beis Hamikdash, which means we're certainly talking about the service of Mata, preparing the Levim. It certainly doesn't have the permanence. The other reason the other reason that Ramban gave for why Hashem would have commanded to build a Mishkan temporarily for 7 days straight, each day temporarily, is so that the 8th day is distinguished, which means it's not about eliciting anything from Hashem. There's no permanence in Hashem's presence coming down, even though it has a command. So the 7 days represent the Yid's investment, and the Yom HaShmini represents the Eibishter's response, the Eibishter's investment. And as we saw in the footnote, the Eibishter's response and the Eibishter's investment is beyond that which we are capable of reaching on our own. Now, Pisa Yuvan, now we understand now we understand why the Mishkan would have to be erected on its own. And no one was capable of doing it. But during the 7 days before, him and Moshe was able to do it. With other people, question mark. I'm very interested to know why there puts a question mark here. Never gave a whole beer, though the answer to the question was Pashtas, how Moshe was able to build it before, was because he had the help of other people, and then there was putting a question mark in, like maybe Moshe did it himself. And the reason why is, I don't know. Anyway. So now, whereas the 7 days in Moshe Rabbeinu did build a Mishkan every day, and yet on the 8th day he couldn't, because the 7 days before was a preparation, Avodas Hamata, the service from below to above. Only so that it's a preparation, so that later there should be the response of the Eibishter that Hashem's presence resides in the Mishkan. And this preparation has to come from below, and therefore Moshe had to build it. In other words, the fact that Moshe was able to build it for the first 7 days before is because that's what it has to be. Hachana has to come from the Mata. So Hashem's not going to, the ability has to be in the Mata in order for the Hachana to be made. Otherwise, it's not a Hachana. But then Hashem has to respond and Hashem's presence has to come in. Now we're talking about building the actual Mishkan and Hashem's presence actually being there. That can't happen through people from below to above. Because this is a revelation that's too lofty to be reached by human effort. It comes from above, and therefore the Mishkan was built automatically on its own. Because the Gilui was then, no one could do it. That kind of Gilui no one could reach. The 7 days before, which is a Gilui, which is a Hachana, everybody could do and everybody should do. But the 8th day, when Hashem responds and the presence of Hashem comes down, no one can build that. No one can build that Mishkan because it's a level of Elokus that's incapable of any human being able to elicit. Now, in order for the Eibishter's response, when the Eibishter's presence resides on the Chesh Nissen, and this should be in such a way where a Yid experiences it internally, and he's not just a passive recipient. I mentioned this before, that the downside of a sister Leila is that I'm a passive recipient. Now, we don't want that to happen. So what happens? Which is why you're doing the Hachana. In other words, even though the revelation in other words, there seems to be a disconnect. On the one hand, there's a Hachana. The Hachana means that by the time I'm done the Hachana, I'll be ready for it. But then we're saying, what you get at the end is unrelated to your Hachana, it's too beyond. So where does this, there's a gap here. So it says like this. And in order for the experience to be a pnimius, the Yid had to do Hachana, and every person had to do, and every individual Yid had to do Hachana. As our sages say, footnote 33, on the pasuk that I will dwell in it, the famous line that Chilek quotes all the time, that Hashem wants to rest, not just in the Mishkan, but in every single Yid. So in order for the Hachana to be properly, there should be pnimius, that the Yid should be part of this experience. Every Yid had to dedicate his heart to the service of building the Mishkan. And then the artisans had to do their work after the donation of every Yid. And after the work is done, the Mishkan has to be brought to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe being an intermediary which connects between Hashem and the Yidden. The Pasuk says, I, Moshe Rabbeinu says, stand between you and God to connect you. That's why he was able to put his hand and build the Mishkan through their donation that it should be built. In other words, in order for this to happen, in order for the Achana to be proper, it has to be brought to Moshe Rabbeinu. So first of all, there's the Achana, and he has to ready himself for the Gilul Likkutei. All of his preparation, all of his work, dedicates to Moshe. And then through that, the Mishkan can be built, and the Shekhinah can come down. But the Akama itself, the Gilul Likkutei itself, which brings the revelation itself, was on its own. It was an investment from Hashem, which is beyond that which a Yid ordinary can reach. So let's look at the footnotes now. Verse 35. The Medrash is basically saying that only Moshe Rabbeinu could do it, all to point to the same idea that the Yid has to do his Achana, yes, but in order for his Achana to elicit the response that Hashem's presence should reside, it has to be brought to Moshe. Moshe has to do the awakening. Who's the Moshe Rabbeinu? Footnote 36. The Rebbe. Footnote 37. The way it comes out in the Pnimi is that the reason why they didn't have to bring it to Moshe is because that's in a crucial stage in eliciting the Eibishter's response. First the Yizachana, bring it to Moshe, and then the response of the Eibishter, the investment. But this is a bit difficult to resolve with the way in which the Tanchuma described the event. Because the way that the Tanchuma describes it is, the way the Medrash describes it there is that they didn't try to erect it. They came to this one, they came to that one, and the Mishkan couldn't erect it. They went to Oliyav, they went to Betzalel, until finally they came to Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Tanchuma explains that because Moshe Rabbeinu felt pain that he didn't get to do anything in the building of the Mishkan, therefore Hashem withheld from the Yidden, or all the Chachamim that they went to before, Hashem withheld the information from them in knowing how to erect it, so Moshe is going to get the schus of erecting it. So the way in which the Medrash seems to play out, it's not as if they're bringing it to Moshe's Achana. It's actually because Hashem withheld it from everybody else to give Moshe a schus, which is not the same way that Rebbe is presenting it here, that giving it to Moshe is a positive part of the process. I do my Achana and then bring that Avodah to Moshe, and then the Mishkan is built. But Mashenki in Pirshashi, this is not the case in Pirshashi, where Rashi does not make this thing that Moshe Rabbeinu was upset about anything. It just says he didn't do anything. And the Pashas, when the Rebbe is saying it, that's the way it's supposed to be. Moshe Rabbeinu is not supposed to do the Avodah for a Yid. The Yid has to make his own Achana. The Rebbe doesn't do the work for the Chassid has to do his work. And then the Chassid dedicates his work to the Rebbe. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, the Tanchuma seems to frame it, that Moshe Rabbeinu was in pain, as if it was a side issue, not so much as part of the actual process. Now, footnote 38. This is a footnote we mentioned before, that even in Parshas Pekuday, Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan on the Zayin Me'Meloyim. And now we understand why. Because the building of Moshe, the effort of Moshe is a crucial stage in getting the Shekhinah. The Yitzhachana, bringing it to Moshe, and then the Eibishter's Shechanti B'Soichem. So footnote 38. Based on this you can explain, but at least P'Pnimi Senyonim, Lashon Rashi, the Lashon of Rashi, which we pointed out earlier from Pekuday, Moshe Midoy, and Moshe erected it. And then Rashi continues, Moshe Rabbeinu complained to Hashem, how could one person do it? Hashem says, you do it with you invest your hand there, it'll look like you erected it, but it's really going to jump up on its own. The Lachoda says that seemingly Moshe Rabbeinu, the words and Moshe erected it is extra. Not only is it extra, but moreover, says it contradicts the fact that it says 2 seconds later that it happens on its own. Ella, rather, in this, Rashi is alluding to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu actually did build it before Hashem did it miraculously. Which is the Zayin Be'Meloyim, which we said before in the footnote in Ha'ara. We said before in Ha'ara 22 star that maybe this is a way of saying Al Pi Pshat, that Moshe Rabbeinu was involved while other people helped him. But over here, we see the crucial importance of Moshe Rabbeinu doing it at this juncture. Haim Zayin Be'Meloyim Adregas HaMishkan Shahoisa Oz. Because at that juncture, on the Chaf Gimel Adar, when the Yidden did all their effort, nobody else could get anything done but Moshe. After the Yidden did all their effort, what's the darga? What's the level we're waiting for now? The darga we're waiting for is the Yid brings his avodah to Moshe, and nobody else can do it. And Moshe built it. And only later there comes the issue of the jumping on its own, Hashem's investment. And then it gives the level of the Chelek Nissen, the 8th day of Elohim, which is Chelek Nissen. The other one, nobody can do it, even Gamla de Moshe, not even Moshe. And Hashem did it from above on its own. But even that, Moshe had to put his hand there. So in other words, there was pointing that even in Rashi you see 3 levels. There's the Yidden doing all the work. They brought it to Moshe. Moshe erected it. Moshe did his part after the Yidden dedicated everything to Moshe. And then from there it goes to the Darga where Hashem Shekhinah comes down. But even that is Yadav Shal Moshe. Moshe's hand does it. It's beautiful. Based on all the above, Rashi. Based on all the above and the opinion of Rashi and the Medrash, which is that there's all the effort of the Yid, and the Yid dedicates his effort to Moshe Rabbeinu, and only afterwards does Hashem Shekhinah come down. But Hashem Shekhinah coming down is beyond anything the Jew can possibly invest. This follows their view, because their view, the mikdash of the future time of Mashiach, which we are waiting for. It's already ready. It'll be revealed and come down from Shemayim. As we say in the Oz Yashir, the mikdash of Hashem, the mikdash of Hashem, which was built by your hand. Hashem built it. And this is the view, says the Rebbe of the Tanchuma and Rashi. So look in the heart of 39. First there besides Rashi Sukkah, and then Rosh Hashanah and Tosfos in Sukkah, where Tosfos in Sukkah discusses and mentions Tosfos in Sukkah and Shavuos. Tosfos in Shavuos says that the Mishkan comes down, discussing the Mishkan, the Beis Mikdash being whether or not the Beis Mikdash is allowed to be built at night, and then he says that the Beis Mikdash will come down min hashamayim, and then Tosfos concludes, and this is what it says in Midrash Tanchuma. And says the Rebbe in the Shila Gillian, in the footnote there, it's based on our Tanchuma. This Tanchuma, which we've been quoting the whole time, where Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan on his own, miraculously jumped up. That Tanchuma concludes with the pasuk in Tehillim Tzadik Beis Hey, which reads, "Kismatani Hashem b'falecha." For you, Hashem made me happy with the things you've done. Says the Medrash Tanchuma, that refers to the Mishkan. B'maisi yadecha, in the work of your hands, Hashem Aran, and I will be happy. That's Beis Mikdash. B'maisi yadecha, the work of your hands, the work of Hashem's hands, Aran, and I will rejoice. That refers to the Beis Mikdash, said the Tanchuma there. So that the Tanchuma is our Tanchuma. And then there puts in the footnote, in Tanchuma, in this citation, in Tanchuma Noyach Yiralaf, it says where there quote the pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Beis Yud Zayin, Kivona Hashem Tzion Yireh B'Chvodei. Hashem built Tzion. Where the Medrash says that even though Yerushalayim was built and destroyed, in the future time Hashem is going to build the whole Yerushalayim. So there is pointing to not that according to Tanchuma, it's not just that the Beis Hamikdash is built by the Eibishter, but even the whole Yerushalayim is built by the Eibishter. Okay, so Rashi and Tanchuma's view is that the Beis Hamikdash is built, the Beis Hamikdash is built by the Eibishter. And therefore, they go according to their shit, as we said before. Alaf ha'elu Even though there's a great virtue of the investment from below, as we described before, that the investment from below is what mizachik, what gives the achana, there's a certain preciousness. There's a certain endearing quality to the avodah that he does. It's impossible that the ultimate revelation of the Eibishter on this lofty level can be elicited by man. It must be a gilul lakus from above that's beyond the capability of anything that can be reached by any human being from anything below. Therefore, after all the virtue of the work of the Eden doing before, leading up to the 7 days of Miluim, and then the 7 days in Miluim, where they erected the Mishkan many times, the true erection of the Mishkan, the true building of the Mishkan, in such a manner that the Shekhinah will reside. It's only dafka when it happens on its own. That's Rashi and Tanchum's view. And therefore that follows, this is congruent with their view that the Mishkan the Mikdash that will be revealed to us when Mashiach comes, Adam will not be done through the hands of man, will be revealed from heaven. Says the Rebbe, Shmois Rabbah, Parshan Beis Daled. Shmois Rabbah there also talks about this idea that there were many people who didn't know how to build a Mishkan, and they brought it to Moshe, and Moshe did it on his own. And the Medrash concludes, if you're going to get curious, how is it possible? When Shlomo built the Beis Mikdash, is built on its own. Meaning even Shlomo Melech's Beis Mikdash, which clearly was built by human beings, nonetheless, there's this Lashon Nivna was built on its own. So it kind of indicates that there's this combination of built on its own, and yet also have the quality of Nivna built from people, but also have the quality of Nivna Atzma built on its own. And L'chura times that by many more when you're talking about the Beis Mikdash Shlishi, where it's mamish waiting, like the Rebbe says here, like a quote in the pasuk, like a quote here, Bonoi Meshluchlu above and waiting for it to come down. Now, based on this, the Mashiach gave the Beis Mikdash, and according to the Rambam, which is actually an opposing view, that Mashiach will build the Beis Mikdash, human being will do it. He also follows this view in that the Rambam highlights the virtue and the preciousness, the uniqueness of the Jew doing his avodah from down here, above the endearing quality of the avodah below, beyond what comes from above. And he has that view with respect to the Mishkan, as we'll see in a moment, and the Mikdash, as we see here, that in the Rambam's view, the Beis Mikdash is built by Mashiach, by human beings. So in footnote 42, there were quotes Hilchos Malachim B'Seifai, famous Hilchos Malachim, where describes Mashiach building Beis Mikdash. The Rambam describes the virtue of why one would learn Mishnayos Midos, which describes the details of the Beis Mikdash, because it's built by man. Midos. Etc. And then the Rebbe writes at the end, fascinating story in the Medrash, where there was a Gzeda that the Roman government said they have to build a Beis Mikdash, and then there were people who came, so the Yidden started doing it, and then people came and told the government that it was a bad idea, told the Roman king that it was a bad idea to let them build a Beis Mikdash. He couldn't rescind his decree, so he put out a new decree making high taxes. And they came to Rabbi Levi gave a whole drasha there, and basically the plan fell apart. But the point is, they actually wanted to build a Beis Mikdash. They actually were involved in building it, which would seem to imply that the Beis Mikdash, the third Beis Mikdash, is being built by man. Otherwise, why would they spend their time building it? Wait for Hashem to bring it down. In various different places in Likkutei Sichos, including earlier in this book, where this idea of a combination of both of these shittas, that there's the investment. Here it's a famous footnote in Likkutei Sichos here, page 9861, or 61, where the Rebbe says, now we can we can resolve the two opinions, whether the Mikdash is from above or below. that the Beis Hamikdash comes from Shemayim, but the doors come from Yalav Yizgal V'Yamdu M'Koimam V'Mid Madelas Nachshav Keilu Banu Kulum, that they put the doors and the mezuzahs people build, but the rest of the building comes down. And there are other such places where it gives other biyudim to combine these two shittas. Okay, so now the Rambam's view, the Rashi and Tanchum are of the view that the Iker is the Mila of Esher Ela, and therefore the Mishkan, the primary area, is that no matter how much effort you didn't have to do, it's left to Hukam Ela of the Eber alone. And likewise, Beis Hamikdash Shlishi is in Shemayim waiting to come down. But the Rambam's of the view where his view is that the Beis Hamikdash is built by man, because he's highlighting the virtue of the Chavivus, the precious, this endearing quality of the Avodah Shalmata. And this follows his opinion about the Mishkan as well. This is based on what the Rebbe explains in a number of places. In Likkutei Sichos, even though the Mishkan and Mikdash are there are two general things. They've been discussing this with respect to a dispute between the Rambam and the Ramban in a few different places in Likkutei Sichos. But there are two general objectives in the Mishkan and Mikdash. One element is the fact that the presence of Hashem resides there. As the Pasuk says, build a Mikdash so that the presence of Hashem should reside. It's one element. The other element, and that's the element highlighted by Rashi and Tanchuma. And the primary element here is the revelation from above. And Beis, the other element in the Mishkan and Mikdash is Avodah Nasis Bahem, is what's done in it. Primarily, but it's Karbonis primarily is the Karbonis, and the fact that Yidden visited 3 times a year on Yom Tovim. So these are the two elements. Now, according to the Rambam, as opposed to the Ramban and others, and Tanchum and Rashi, as we see here, the primary command of Hashem to build a Beis Hamikdash is the second element of Avodah Samata, the Karbonis that we do. As this is a quote from the Rambam, that there should be a home that's ready, lahakrav by karbonos, in which to bring Hashem offerings, and we rejoice with Hashem 3 times a year. So in other words, the Rambam highlights the second element, the element of karbonos, the element of avodah samata, as opposed to highlighting the gilui l'kos milamayla. And the reason is that's an according to Rambam's view is even though the revelation that comes from above is well beyond anything that can possibly be reached by human beings, that there's a virtue that even though it's only one measure, it's only one kav, but it's his kav, it's the kav that he earned. It's what the Yid earned with his work. And if when Hashem tells the Yid, go ahead and make a Mishkan and Mikdash, Hashem is commanding the Yid, go earn it. The Iker is, the Yid should work and put his avodah in the which, as opposed to the revelation comes from above, Hashem doesn't command the Yid about that. That's Hashem's business. Hashem will make the Shechina. When Hashem will make the Shechina come down. But when Hashem is commanding the Yid to do, it says the Rambam, what's Hashem commanding? Hashem is commanding, you put your effort, you make the carbon. And therefore, since he highlights that virtue of the Avodah Samata, therefore he is also of the opinion that the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi is built by Mashiach from man, as opposed to Rashi and Tanchuma, which highlight the Gilui L'Kus Milamayla, and therefore, first of all, Hukum HaMishkan, the Mishkan is established on its own, because the Gilui L'Kus is such that it cannot be reached by any human being, and likewise, Beis Hamikdash Shlishi is in Shemayim waiting to come down. Ches, Alma, move on to the third, Shikam Das HaMidrash, Rashi. Even according to the Medrash and Rashi, certainly there they agree that there is a special virtue in the person down here working and getting better and refining himself getting better. And therefore for that reason there had to be, Kaniskala mentioned before, there had to be the work of the Yid down here. In donating to the Mishkan, and all the artists had to put their work into building, into fashioning the Mishkan and building the Mishkan and making all the articles. Ella, but shekolzeh, all of this, the avodah from milamata l'mayla, hu b'achana, only a preparation. But the actual building of the Mishkan, was not, the Yidden couldn't do that. And this is what there was highlighting before in the parentheses, or at least began that idea. And therefore, in order for the avodah mata, the hachana, the Yid does have any true virtue or any true value, it must be brought to Moshe, must be dedicated to the Rebbe. And likewise, when it comes to the preparation of the 7 days of Miluyim leading up to the 8th day, which is also apart from below to above, and that too was part of the preparation, as mentioned before, and that's also why it was done by Moshe, as mentioned before in the footnotes, that Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who was doing the 7 days of erecting and taking down, erecting and taking down, because that was the stage, as I mentioned in footnote 38. That was the darga when Moshe does his part after the Yid dedicates all of his nidvas hamishkan and his chachmei lev to Moshe. Now 45. V'zeu gamatam. This is why the Levim, every time they traveled, they erected the Mishkan, took it down. They did it. Even though when it comes to the first time, only Moshe could do it. No one could do it. On Hashem had miraculous to do it with Moshe. And now they're allowed to do it. Now they could do it. So after Hashem invests that Gila Lakos and that the Mishkan is erected on its own. By Moshe's investment, of course, Moshe's hand there, and now the presence of Hashem is there. Now the power is given that every Yid can build his own Mishkan. So once that click is made with Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rebbe puts his hand to lift up that Mishkan. From there, every Yid gets the koyach to do it as well. Now, the lesson we take from all of the above is Aleph, number one, number one, every Yid has to put through all of his effort to serve Hashem with Torah and mitzvahs as best as he can. Nevertheless, he has to remember and know it's only preparation. He has to bring all of his avodah and all of his effort to Moshe. The Moshe which is within each one, the level of Moshe within each one, the part of the neshama that's pure, like Moshe Rabbeinu is pure, has to be connected to that etzem nefesh, that yechidah shebenefesh. And in that way he brings it to Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Shebedoidoi brings it to the Rebbe. Because Moshe is the one that has the ability to erect the Mishkan within each and every Yid. So number one, he has to do all of his effort, he has to do his nadava, he has to do his chachmei lev, he has to do all of whatever he can, he has to invest. And all that investment has to be dedicated to the Rebbe. And in that way, the Rebbe can erect it. So on the one hand, so you have to do all your effort and dedicate your effort to Moshe. L'idach, on the other hand, kashematzim shlichus. When the Rebbe suggests a mission, l'nsaya, to travel out, v'lasik ba'afotzes sayados, and get out there and spread Yiddishkeit, v'amayonis, and to spread chassidus, b'frat hachutz, especially all the way to the outside. So the Rebbe gives a shlichus. And in which way you are actually building the Mishkan, not just for yourself, but for those upon whom you are having an effect. 47, Shari mitzvah, because a mitzvah, which is what you're doing. You're going to do mitzvahim, doing mitzvah of people. Maloshin Satzav Chibur is to make a connection, meaning you're bringing the Shekhinah into that person's life. You're making a Mishkan for him. You talk in, so it's possible, Shiyakshiv, the person will think when he gets told that he has to do a shlichus, that based on his current status, it's not for me. Shlichus is not for me. Because he claims, I'm a smart person, part of the nation of smart people. And therefore my behavior has to be rational, smart, thought out, understood. Meaning to say, he has to contemplate everything until the point that it becomes pnimius. And he says, look, I'm not holding by shlichus yet. Shlichus is a lofty level. Get out there and teaching other people about Yiddishkeit. Who said I'm connected to Yiddishkeit deep enough? And this is what the person's thinking. And it's kilu coming from a Yetzirah dika place. I'm a pneumistic guy. I have to internalize all the messages before I start teaching it to others. And therefore he claims, my current state, the idea of teaching others, it's somewhat hovers over me. It's too transcendent from me. It's makif. He hasn't fully digested and fully grasped this notion of shlichus and reaching out to others. Therefore, according to his view, first he's going to invest in Torah and learning Torah b'chlal in general, and learning chassidus b'frat. Over time, when he connects to Chassidus on such a deep level that he comes to the point that he has to share it, then he'll fulfill the shlichus that the Rebbe is giving him. Says the Rebbe, big mistake. From here we get the Hira from the way the Mishkan was built. Avodah is mata. The avodah from below to above, you becoming a panimi, in order that your mishkan should be erected, and should be proper. That the presence of Hashem should reside in your hand. This is the quote from Moshe Rabbeinu's bracha to the Yidden when they built the mishkan. He has to bring this to Moshe within himself. And to Moshe, the literal Moshe, to the Rebbe. Without the dedication to the Rebbe, even if he's going to work as hard as he wants to build his own mishkan, be mizbonin and learn and all the stuff. This is similar to the mishkan being built during the 7 days without the 8th day, where it's hukum ba'elav, because not being brought to Moshe. Where on the 8th day is hukum mishkan is Moshe's asik ata biyotcha. Moshe has to put his hand there. Dafka by bringing the avodah to the dedication to the Rebbeim, to the Eini Eda, Moshe b'chol the Moshe of every generation. In our generation, in our time, what does it mean dedicating to the Rebbe? Milui hashlichus b'fas manos chutza, fulfilling the mission of teaching chassidus to the outside. Nivne gam mishkan shaloi, then you'll build your own mishkan. It's not just a question of, there are people out there suffering, disconnected from Yiddishkeit, and therefore we're going to compromise on your lofty level of Yiddishkeit because it's worth it for somebody else to get a little bit of Yiddishkeit. That's a mistaken view of shlichus. The Rebbe is telling us here that if you can try from today till tomorrow to daven barichas and learn chassidus and build your mishkan, it's not going to work unless the Yid is dedicated to the Rebbe's mission. And the Rebbe's mission is to teach chassidus to all of the Yidden. And if a Yid is dedicated to teaching Yiddishkeit and Chassidus to others, then the Chassidus he learns will have an effect. Then he'll be able to build his own Mishkan, because his Mishkan is dedicated to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe's shlichus is teaching and spreading Yiddishkeit to wherever we can. And therefore, he'll get the true ilu and the true virtue and completion of his own avodah, but mitzvahs in his own Torah and his own mitzvahs and davening. Then the presence of Hashem will reside in his own hand if he's actually dedicated to the Rebbe's mission of reaching other people. And through this service of dedicating to the Rebbe's shlichus of teaching chassidus to the outside, Kasimar, Mashiach arrives, like footnote 51, Commandments Melech Mashiach Baal Shem Tov, the famous Maisa, when Baal Shem Tov had a list, and the Shulman asked Mashiach, Emes Kasimar, and Mashiach said, when you're present, when the chassidus we taught everywhere, whom Mashiach Tzadkenu, Mar, the master, who Baal Shem Tov is asking, when are you coming, is Mashiach, our righteous Redeemer, Pekuday, Mamish, it happened without delay.